Well, I think that if somebody really has that entrepreneurial spirit and they want to just be an entrepreneur in, general terms as opposed to like following a specific passion, I think that would be my advice is to find out like, okay, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to own your own business, but what are you passionate about? Because at the end of the day, if we don't love what we're doing, I mean, we could all still do it, but eventually that's gonna wear out, right? Hey guys, this is Michelle with Glam Boutique. Welcome to What's Your Hustle podcast.
What's your hustle? What do you do? Here to bring money and attention to you. A lot of people want to know, you gotta give them the truth. Here to run the numbers up, we about to go through the roof. What's your hustle? What's your hustle? Here to talk about your grind, how you spend your time. We done brought you to the show, you gotta speak what's on your mind. What's your hustle?
What's up, everybody? You are now watching What's Your Hustle podcast, and today we have another special guest. Today we have Michelle from Glam Boutique. She is a great friend of mine. We met under some wonderful circumstances and have been connected ever since then. But before we get into the podcast, Michelle, let everybody know where they can find you at.
What's up, Cory?
What's up?
So you can find us. Our store is in Warsaw, downtown Warsaw, Indiana. Our website is glampresents.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. We'd love to see you.
What made you want to be an entrepreneur?
I don't know if I ever looked at it as like I want to be an entrepreneur. I just knew the business that I wanted to be in, and I kind of, I guess, forged a path to get there. As cliche as it sounds, I have just always been drawn to fashion. So this really never was a hobby for me. It was a passion, something I pursued, and something that I've done really in all facets of the business all my life. So the ultimate goal then, of course, was to open my own boutique and to try to make a difference in my community, and to be able to see that realized is an amazing blessing.
So let's go back to the beginning. What was life like for you before you became an entrepreneur?
It was safe. Yeah, there's a lot of challenges. That come.
Wait, you say safe. I just can't let you just go back. Define safe a little bit.
Well, I guess what I mean by that is, when I became a single mom of 3 boys, and I knew it maybe didn't make sense for me to take this biggest risk, like, because this wasn't a hobby for me. This wasn't supplemental income. This had to pay my bills. And so I guess that's what I mean by safe. When there's other income coming in and it's not reliant on you to make sure that this can work. I didn't have an opportunity to fail. I didn't have a plan B. So that creates some hustle, right? You can relate to that?
Definitely.
Yeah, so that's what I mean by safe.
Okay. Keep going.
Yeah. So, I forgot what the question was.
The question was, how was life before you became an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I think that my experience, even though I didn't see it happening as it was happening, you and I were just talking about that, I think that my experience up until the point of opening my own business, it all led to this. Like, all parts, even though they didn't seem related, they've all helped me become a stronger community leader and a stronger business person.
You've mentioned community a couple times. So why is community so important?
Man, I really think that's what it's all about. And I don't know that was originally in my mission statement, but first of all, you have to support the community that supports you, right? And then we're also a downtown business, and we have an amazing downtown community. But community means more than just, the people that are supporting you. It also means relationships with other vendors and with other businesses, giving back, even community within your team, right? I mean, it's just, and I really believe that all business, regardless of the business that you're in, it comes down to people, to relationships, which is life, right?
Right.
Yeah.
How do you go about building and maintaining relationships?
I think you have to be intentional. I think you have to really be intentional, and I think appreciation and gratitude goes a long way. And to be able to, I guess we'll just start with my team. And I think you have to make sure that those people know that they're appreciated and they're valued. And then the rewards that you get from that when you have a team that is all in, that quality of life that provides you. Because now I don't have to be physically in the store all the time, because I know that my staff represents me so well there, and that mission statement, that underlying mission statement of an experience. So when someone walks in the store, we use that word a lot about providing an experience. It really doesn't come down to, again, this sounds cliche, but it doesn't come down to whether we make a sale or not. The way I look at it is, if I have somebody walk into my door, I have an opportunity to make a difference in that person's life, whether they buy something or not. And that opportunity I don't take for granted. So I love to see people in the community, people from outside the community come in, and we try to give them a positive experience.
I can see, as the business owner, I can see you going an extra mile and making sure that the customer get that experience. But how do you translate that over to an employee? Because sometimes an employee is like, they just hire help, they don't take it serious. Like, the business sometimes it doesn't care. It doesn't matter to them. So how do you translate that over to them to make them give that customer that experience?
Well, I think it's first by example. And then I think teaching and training is very important, obviously, in any business. But I also think it's giving the power of believing in them and giving them the empowerment to have the tools to be able to provide the same experience that I do. So here's an example. A lot of business owners in my field will not share wholesale pricing, that kind of thing. That doesn't work for me. So they know how to price something just like I do. So when you build that trust, another example would be taking them to market so that they see the whole process of how we pick out goods and how we come up with pricing for that, the product knowledge behind the goods. So now you can see how that's going to help them on the floor when they understand, how it's made and what it's made of and how it's can be styled. And they're with me from the beginning. Now they see that product coming into the floor, something that they helped make a decision on, how that translates to the client and to the experience and to that buy-in. That makes sense.
Have you, with training individuals, have you ever been fearful of, man, if I give them this information, they could go off and start their own thing and potentially be my competition?
Yeah. That's really not in my nature. But yeah, that's definitely a thing, but I don't even look at it like that. So I suppose some people lead that way. For me, that's, like I said, it's just not in my personality. I'm a very trusting person, and thank goodness that hasn't happened. I haven't been burnt. I think it's also comes down to the people that you hire. I had a boss one time tell me that it's really better to have, a hole or have a void than to make a wrong hire. And we have a pretty small staff, so when you have that wrong fit, it can just kind of throw everything off. So I think it really is important to be very careful about who you bring into your team, especially when you're, small and you have a very specific mission, and that those people aren't just filling a role, that they're actually can contribute. And I think for any business owner too, to be able to not be afraid of change, to not be afraid to do something differently, and to listen to fresh ideas and, young viewpoints can be very helpful too.
When did you decide that it was time to start adding on people to your team?
Well, I think it's kind of a natural progression as you grow. I started out, my payroll was very, very small because I was trying to live on a very lean budget. And I think as you grow, I was also getting older. Quality of life to me is important. And as a single mom, not having to work every single weekend and around the clock and still being able to be present for your kids, that kind of is a natural progression to make sure that you have the staffing there to support a quality of life for yourself as well.
When did you say a quality of life began to be more important to you?
I think age.
Was it like a certain, has it always been important to you, or was it like at this point, this is when this became more important?
I think it's always been important. I've had some pretty traumatic experiences in my life. I think when I lost my dad and my brother, life got real fast. And I think you realize like how short life is. And, you know, we've all done the hustle thing. And I mean, I still feel like I hustle, but when you're just running around and that's all you're doing, that can kind of burn you out. And if you don't stay fresh and you don't listen to yourself and take time to rest, and you're not doing anybody any good. So I think because of that, I learned how to incorporate a quality of life.
When you lost your loved ones, were you running the business at that time?
Yes.
And did you still have to run your business as you was going through that process of planning arrangements and so forth?
Yeah. I guess technically at the end of the day, I was still the one paying the bills and in charge. But to be honest with you, I went through about a month of, I don't even remember it. I wasn't in the store. And again, it came down to just having that core group of team members that were able to just kind of take it over while I grieved and kind of tried to get back on my feet. So really, really grateful for that.
How did you, and I don't want to stay on the topic too long because I know it's touching, but I feel like it's important because at some point when you're an entrepreneur, you are going to lose a loved one and you are going to have to take care of those arrangements, but you're also going to have to make sure that your business is ran too, because life happens, you know. So how did you get through that?
Well, I got through that really single and foremost because of my faith. And there were a lot of times that, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to get through the next day. So I think you keep your faith strong, and you surround yourselves with people that can help support you in that. And then also I think it's important to go through that grieving process. And that's something that I'm still learning 6 years later. And none of us are really prepared for that when it happens. So, and for us that are, you know, pretty strong, independent people, it's maybe a little bit harder to allow yourself to, if you're having a down day, you know, like I'm going to be home today and I'm going to stay in the bed, or I think you just have to like let yourself go through all those feelings that are there. And I remember about a year after the accident, I had been in counseling for a while. And I went through this, and I'm a very emotional, sensitive person, as you know, Cory, but I went through this phase where I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to cry in front of anybody, very unlike my personality. And in counseling, he asked me, you know, what I was afraid of. And he said, are you so afraid that if you just lose it, you'll never recover? And I said, I guess so. And he, you know, you're just telling me how negative that was to keep that bottled in. And if you're in the car and you have to pull over and you have to cry for 5 minutes straight, or if you're on the floor in your business and you have to excuse yourself and go cry, you have to allow yourself to go there. And there's something about grieving publicly that is very therapeutic. Although you feel very vulnerable, there comes a lot of healing. And again, I use that word community. You can build community through your own story and through your own hurt by sharing that with others.
If you could go back, would you do it all again? As far as being an entrepreneur and starting your own business, like, cause you always been into fashion, and you love that, and that would never ever go anywhere, that fashion. But would you still do it all over again?
100%.
Why?
I was just having a conversation with somebody about this, and I think it just comes down to, and as an entrepreneur, you know, it's maybe not as, what's the word I want to use, stable. I mean, especially after the year that we all just came through. I mean, that was a really hard year. It was financially draining. It was stressful. It was consuming. So I think you have to realize that, I guess that's part of the negative that comes with, you know, being a business owner, is that it's not always stable. You're not always on the fast track to the next promotion. You know, you're constantly hustling and grinding. But at the end of the day, when you love what you do, it's 100% worth it. And to be able to be in my hometown community and to feel like I'm making a small difference, to hire young women and believe in them and give them an opportunity to kind of discover who they are. To have a woman come in who has worn a million different hats as a mom, and then to come in and to feel seen as a woman again, and to see her fall in love with being a woman and feel good about herself in an outfit. Those are all the moments that make it worth it for me.
So I know you have your one store in Warsaw. So when did you make the decision that you wanted to branch off and open up another store? Like, how did you come to that decision?
I think it was always in there, and I think somehow I attributed success maybe by volume and by more. And I think, when we opened our Granger store, we opened our doors the day after the lockdown, after the COVID lockdown. People asked me, why did you do that? Why did you pick that time? Well, when I signed the lease, nobody had even heard of COVID. So, and it was new construction. Really, the answer is you didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. You just had to try to make it work. And that was a challenge because I was trying to sell clothing, and we kind of intentionally went like high end and not things that you're going to sit around in your home in. So you're trying to sell clothing to people that aren't going anywhere, and how to stay relevant, and how to just try to make ends meet and pay those bills. So unfortunately, we did close a year after we opened. And again, I come back to, I think life really it just comes down to perspective and how you look at things. And I don't understand all of that yet, but knowing that there was a reason that we were meant to be here, and we met a lot of amazing people. We had amazing community connections here as well. And I think, a lesson for me in the opening and closing of that store, and it's in my nature to feel like, I failed. So again, it comes down to perspective and did we fail, or did we do something good up here, even though it was a shorter time than I expected? But I think it's also made me realize that more isn't always more. Sometimes less is more. And to be back, I miss being back in my home store. I was up here a lot, and that hustle. And again, coming back to like quality of life, not being on the road for 2.5 hours. But there's been a lot of lessons there for me too. And to just really, it forces you to become stronger, when you go through something like that, and make smarter business decisions and those kind of things.
What's some of the lessons that you learned during that time when you opened up the second store during COVID?
Oh boy, I think like what I was just saying, just trying to make smarter business decisions, especially with my buys and what am I buying and who am I buying it for. I could fill the store full of all the things that Michelle likes, but at the end of the day, I have to be able to sell it. And if there's not 6 Michelles that are going to buy 6 of these pieces, you're going to go out of business pretty quick. So I think you really become more in tune to what your customer is asking for, and to be able to pivot in a time where, okay, everybody's home. We're working remotely. So as an example, instead of a business suit, we're now selling loungewear, where they can still be comfortable in their home, but still feel good about themselves, still be comfortable, that kind of thing. So I think it's just really, you become stronger in going through challenges like that in all aspects, getting a tighter grip on your financials, listening to your customer, listening to your community, and still realizing that even though you're personally going through something, we're all going through the same thing. So how do you connect with other people in that situation so that we can lift each other up, instead of being in competition with each other?
How do you balance out being an entrepreneur as well as a wife and grandmother and so forth? Like, how do you do all that? Because sometimes that's tough, because when you own it, when you own the business, when you go home, it's not like you just shut it off. Like it's just, it's just constantly just going. So how do you do that?
Well, I think, I'm still a work in progress there, and I am guilty of a lot of times, being on my phone, working from home. But I also feel very lucky that I have such a great staff that I am able to, when I need to be off. My son, he just went through a health issue, and I was really out of the store for about a month. But I have a great team in place that was able to keep, things running beautifully, and I was able to focus on what was most important. So again, it comes back to just, I think, building that team around you so that when things like that do happen, they have the tools to be able to carry through.
What does legacy mean to you?
That one's close to my heart. Legacy means a whole lot. And I'm fortunate to have people in my life and in my family that have left their mark and have left an amazing legacy. And so I take it as both an honor and a responsibility to try to fulfill that as best I can, and they're big shoes to fill. But I have great examples in my life, not just my dad and my brother, who are very involved in our community, but also my grandpa, who was a Methodist pastor and made a huge difference in his community and with the lives that he touched. And I think at the end of the day, we're all called, we all have a story, and we're all called to share our influence and our stories with others, to be vulnerable and to build community through that.
So you said that you were 52. So
how did that happen?
Right.
I still feel 29. It goes fast, doesn't it?
You don't look 52
well,
at all.
Thank you.
Let me say that for sure.
Hopefully your lighting's doing its job.
Well, we try to. But what was life like if you could at 18? No, I'll take that back. No, not 18. Not 18. No, I don't want to go back that far. What was life like at 30? What was Michelle doing at 30?
At 30, I was in, the throes of being a mom. And I to be honest with you, up until probably about age 27, I really didn't think I wanted kids. I didn't think that I had that calling, and it changed like that. But so I think for business-minded entrepreneurial spirits, sometimes, and it's something that I think it's a little uncomfortable to talk about, especially as a mom now. But I think sometimes we struggle with learning how to be a stay-at-home mom. There's still a calling for us to be. I hate to say more than that, because I don't mean to take anything away. And I was a stay-at-home mom for 15 years, and it was the best and most important thing I ever did. But I think it's okay to have that discussion that sometimes we need something else, and I see a lot of women get lost in their roles as a mom and a wife. And I think it's because of the society's pressures that we put on women that makes it not okay to say, I want to go back to school, or I need a little side job, or I need something just for me. And that has to be okay. And some women don't experience that, and that's great too. But for me at 30, I was kind of struggling with that identity and who is Michelle now? So.
And how did you figure out who was Michelle?
Well, like I said, for me, I needed to have something of my own, something outside of the house. So I went back to school. I finished my master's, and I had some little part-time gigs. I also volunteered a lot, which was a great. That was a great I don't want to say distraction, because that's a negative term, but it was a great faucet for me, just to be able to have that social time outside of the home and still feel like I was growing as a person.
So at that time, you wasn't an entrepreneur?
I was not.
You was not? So,
no.
But you was into fashion, though?
Yes. So on and off through college, I worked in commercial corporate retail on and off through my whole life. And then I also did some other things, like I was the buyer for a corporation. So I was a merchandiser for another corporation. So all those experiences, I taught college classes for a while. And you would think, how does that help you now? But my retail business is not only just being in the boutique. I also do offer services, and that's actually how I started, was being like a personal consultant for. I was able to get into some pretty cool closets of some high-ranking officials in Washington, D.C., and so that service turned into public speaking, really. And so that time where I spent, in the college, all those experiences have helped me become more well-rounded.
What college did you go to?
University of Phoenix for that. That's where I was teaching. I graduated from Hawaii Pacific University, and then I got my master's through University of Oklahoma.
What made you go to college?
Well, my parents are educators, so it wasn't an option of are you going or not. It was just, where are you going? And fortunately, I love to learn, and I've loved high school, I loved college. So I think it's probably silly to say, but I feel like it was in my blood, it was in my destiny and I would love to. I was just a little bit shy of starting my doctorate, but I think it's really important, whether it's college or, a trade or, I think it's important that we're always investing in ourselves and we're always growing. And I think too, just who you surround yourself with is so important too. What's the old saying that the 5 people that you're with the most really has the most impact on your life? So when you surround yourself with greatness and you put yourself around people that are hustlers, and it brings out the best. It's like, when you play up in Little League and you play up with the more advanced guys, it's going to bring out the best in you. Same thing in life. So you always want to be playing up and living up, right?
Right. Definitely.
I know you can relate to that.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. So back, because I'm loving when you was 30. So you back when you're 30. So you got a college education. And so you got 3. So at that time, you're 30, you got 3 kids, you got a college education.
At that time, I had 2.
You had 2.
Yeah.
At that time, you had 2 kids.
Actually, 1. So 30, 32, yeah.
Well, so yeah, 1 kid, college education.
Yeah.
And you was just really just kind of figure out what you kind of wanted to do.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Okay.
I was just focused on being a mom.
Just focus on being right. So you was just focused on being a mom, raising your kids, and just going through everyday life, so to speak. Yeah. So at what age did you say, you know what, I want to start my own business? Because you was working, right? You was working.
Yeah.
You was like part time.
Yeah.
Wait, so when did the corporate situation go when you was working? That's after?
That was my whole life, basically. That started as a college student.
Okay, as a college student,
yeah.
You was doing all that.
Yeah, and then I took a break from college because I got promoted, and
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened? Like, how did you decide to become an entrepreneur? Because that's, to me, I'm thinking like, how did that happen? How did that happen?
Honestly, it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity that kind of fell in my lap. And I think a lot of times that's what happens. And it's, I think, being prepared enough and to listen to your heart and knowing that, and also to make sure that the people that present the opportunity are a right fit for you. But it was an opportunity that fell into my lap. I was becoming a little bit connected in the community that I lived in. And it was actually a bridal shop. It's not even anything close to a boutique like I have now. But she asked me if I would be interested in partnering and doing something together. And so it was that opportunity that launched my dream, really. And it wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be in my brain, but without that opportunity, without that experience, I'm not sure I would have been brave enough to do it on my own when I moved home.
And how long did that partnership last?
It was under a year. It was very quick, and it only ended because of personal things that happened in my life, which brought me, I was in Virginia at the time, so it brought me back home to Indiana. And I think I got just enough of a taste of it and realized that this is what I was called to do, and I wanted to do it and to be able to do it in my hometown. And I had a strong family support system that encouraged me to do it, and here we are.
So, how did you get funding to do it?
Well, we were pretty bare bones. Fortunately, I didn't have to do any kind of corporate, loan from the bank or anything. My family helped support me, and we just started out very, very, very small. My inventory was small. We did all the renovations ourselves to save money, and we started out with a skeleton budget. And fortunately, we were able to grow in that and eventually do more renovations and grow my inventory and grow a staff. There was probably the first year I was in there by myself. If I had to go get a sick kid, I had to close the door. I had nobody, and I think that transparency, I think it's a fine line, but I think the way I handled that, was just to be real, and not try to pretend that I'm some big corporation, but just say, look, I'm a small business owner. I apologize, but I have to close the store 2 hours early so I can go pick up my sick kid from school. And I think people respond to that honesty and that transparency. And fortunately, I think that helped me instead of hurting me, and just, again, building that community and that connection.
Are you still in that same location that you started, or did you grow from there?
We are still in the same location.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah. So I have an amazing landlord, and again, it comes down to, relationships and people. But these people have been in my life since I was a little girl. So, and for them to be my landlords, she was actually a business owner in the same spot for 30 years. So there was already longevity there. And she's been, she's just been a great mentor to me. So Jeanne, if you're watching this, I appreciate you.
What are your values?
As a business owner or as a person?
Look at you. You trying to go deep.
Which I don't know that there would be a huge difference in those. I think honesty is always at the top of my list. Just to live an honest life and be an honest person, and be trustworthy. To be a person that somebody, or a business that somebody, I'll answer it both ways, I guess, can count on, and to be intentional with the way you live, the things that you say, the way you do business. Those are the qualities that I admire and look up to and aspire to incorporate into my own life, into my own business. I think to have a servant's heart and a love for others is not just important as a person, but definitely as a business owner as well. And that's something that I appreciate about you, Cory. And it goes back to how you and I met. And I know that in talking to my husband about you and how we met, that was one of the first things I noticed about you, was you have just a natural servant's heart. You want to help others. And I definitely, to be empathetic and to, there's a lot of people in this world that aren't good listeners. And you're not one of those, and I think to sit aside from somebody that really wants to know your story and is listening is an amazing quality. And that's something that I'm working on to become better. But I think those things are really important.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I mean it.
You definitely.
And I'm married to a guy that's very much the same. Tell him that all the time. Yep.
I can definitely tell the difference in you since he's coming to your life. I can definitely tell that you're more happier.
Yeah. Well, we've heard that a lot, haven't we?
Yeah. You always had this glow, this light about you, but it's just that with Tracy, it's just more illuminating.
That's so sweet. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're just an awesome individual. Just a very, very, very strong woman.
Well, thank you.
A lot of, and I can see why the women that's around you, they gravitate towards you. You really empowered them. I mean, I even learned a lot being around you in just a short amount of time. But
thank you.
I don't. Let me just. So you try to take me there. You try to take me there.
I mean, if I can be vulnerable, you can be vulnerable.
Look, she's trying to take me there. Look.
Well, I think there is beauty in being transparent, and we all have a story, and we've all had traumatic things that have happened to us, right? And I think it's so important that you learn how, so that those things don't define who you are. I think it's okay, and I think it's, in many cases, it's necessary for those things to change you, but they can change you for the good, not the other way around. So I think it's really important to learn how to communicate your story so that you can help others, because in that there's beauty, right? You've taken something that has been very hurtful and hard, and you've turned it into a positive. And if we could do that in all things in life, like how much better would we be, right?
Right.
So I think there is beauty in vulnerability, and it's not always comfortable.
And when you're trying to be successful, that's not comfortable either.
Right, because as you know, we think as a successful business owner, you know, we can't be emotional, we have to be strong, we have to have all the answers. And that may be true for some businesses, but I think for the most part, people are able to connect with you as a business owner if you can just be real. And sometimes that's saying, I don't know the answer, but I'll find out, or I'll work on it, or I'm having a hard day, you know, whatever the case may be. I think coming back to, again, being honest and being real and being transparent is how people connect with you as a business owner. And that would be the community, your team, your family, your clients. It goes a long way.
How do you let people into your life, into your circle? Because like you say, who you have next to you is very important. So
Yeah.
how do you have like a process? Like, is it an application that they have to like fill out to be a part of your life? Because, and I'm serious. Like I tell people that, I was like, if you want to be like, it's an application process.
I love that.
that we have to go through, because
Yeah.
I'm special.
Yeah, I love that. I think that as we become older and wiser, our circles naturally become smaller and tighter. And being a very social person, that's been a little bit of a hard lesson for me to learn. And unfortunately, not everybody is going to have your back the way, you know, you think they're going to, or the way that you have their back. But I've learned, you know, in the last few years that we don't need a big, huge circle. You know, most of us just need a small circle of people that we know get us, that will understand us, that will elevate us, tell us when we're messing up, and love us unconditionally, and be empathetic towards our own stories, and then, you know, return the favor. So as far as an application process, I don't think I have one that I've like thought out, but I think you become very aware of things that are important to you, and, you know, same-minded values, and you're drawn towards those people. You know, people, for me, it's people that use the word light, that just seem to have a light around them, that are positive, that are able to put things in perspective, and I have to say I've grown a lot in the last few years. And since the accident, I was one of those people that when things didn't go right, like my world would fall apart, you know, and that's a hard way to live, because just think about an average 24 hours. There's a lot of things that don't go the way we think they're going to go, right, in those 24 hours.
Right.
And if you're constantly fighting that, and you're not able to pivot and change just in the course of a day, your life becomes pretty heavy and pretty difficult. So that's one of the beautiful lessons that I've learned, you know, in my tragedy and in my grieving, is that things are going to go wrong and they're not going to go your way. But you have to learn how to, first of all, change the narrative and change the perspective. And then also be able to pivot and, okay, this is what's happened and we're going to move this way. And your life becomes a lot less stressful and a lot more enjoyable.
What are some ways that you deal with stress?
I'm not great at that. That's something that I'm working on. I tend to be a sleeper when I feel stressed out and I'm emotional. I tend to kind of withdraw. And I think some of that is good. And there's also been times when I've done that too much. And that's when I know, like, oh, I might need help. I might need to get back into counseling, and to not be so prideful that you can't reach out for help. You know, it's important to, and I think counseling is great for everybody. I think there's a negative taboo. Mental health is so important, and to keep, you know, stress levels down and perspectives on point, whatever it is that you have to do to be able to get there, if it's counseling, if it's working out, if it's, you know, making sure you get enough sleep and eating right, all those things. Surrounding yourself with people that, don't put you in those heavy, negative, stressful situations. Your circle is important too. I think so. Those are some of the things that help me.
Do you exercise?
I definitely need to be doing better right now. Yeah. Right now I'm in busy season, so I'm always moving. But yes, I definitely need to get back in the gym. But yes, it's always been part of my life. It's, that was something that was passed on from my dad, physical activity. And I think the older that you get, the more important that is, keeping yourself active. And yeah.
What's some things that you know now that you wish you would have learned early on and starting that you feel like that would have really helped accelerate you quicker, maybe?
Wow. Well, I think you can't replace experience. So I don't know that I don't take anything away from what I've learned and even my failures, because we can learn from those too, right?
Definitely.
But I think just that coming back to that lesson of not everything has to be a big thing. And what's that saying? Like, if you 5 weeks from now, if you look back and this is no big thing, like, it shouldn't be taking so much negative energy from you, and being able to, again, I know I've used that word a lot, but just putting things in perspective is so important. But I think that would be my biggest lesson to myself is things are going to go wrong and things aren't going to go the way that you think they're going to go, and letting that go, because sometimes when you do that, things can work out even more beautifully. And listening to God, our timing is not God's timing, right? His timing is always perfect. So when you're faithful, and we're called not to worry about all those little things, right? So when you listen and you just are still, there can be great reward for listening to him and taking our time and not rushing through something, and being okay with that.
How would you define success? I don't know if I asked you that. Did I ask you that? Mm-mm. Okay. Yeah. How would you define success?
Well, I think my answer is a lot different now than it would have been 25 years ago. But I think really at the end of the day, it comes down to being joyful, appreciating and loving what we have the opportunity to do every day, making a difference in the lives of those that are around us. That's what I think makes us successful, and I think God gives us each talents, and this is passed down from my dad as well, but I think it's our duty and our responsibility to find those talents and use them for greater good. Well, I think that if somebody really has that entrepreneurial spirit and they want to just be an entrepreneur in, general terms, as opposed to like following a specific passion, I think that would be my advice, is to find out, like, okay, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to own your own business, but what are you passionate about? Because at the end of the day, if we don't love what we're doing, I mean, we could all still do it, but eventually that's gonna wear out, right? So, but when you love, and I really do, I love, we were just talking about this yesterday. I was in on a Sunday for 5 hours and I enjoyed every minute of it because I love what I do. But there's going to be a lot of challenges in, running and owning your own business. So you have to be passionate about what you're doing and you have to believe in your mission. And so I guess my advice would be come up with a little mission statement and what it is that you want to accomplish with your business, and then kind of work backwards from there.